In the sleepy village of Metamora, Ohio, a warm summer evening on July 19, 2016 would become etched in darkness. Sierah Joughin, a vibrant 20-year-old known for her infectious spirit, set out for what should have been a simple bike ride home. When she didn't arrive and her phone went unanswered, worry set in and a frantic search began. What followed was a nightmare. Her bright purple bicycle was found abandoned by the roadside, surrounded by strange items scattered among broken corn stalks and traces of blood. The horrifying truth became clear. Sierah had been taken. As a grieving community rallied and law enforcement raced against the clock, the trail of clues led to a chilling discovery, a hidden torture chamber revealing the sinister actions of a violent predator who had been hiding in plain sight. Sierah Joughin was a 20-year-old student from the small and sleepy village of Sylvania, Ohio. Sierah was known for her infectious energy, loud personality, and love for performing and entertaining. Her family described her as someone who was hard to miss, always full of life, and eager to make others smile. Sierah was the firstborn child and was followed by 2 brothers and 2 sisters. She shared an especially close bond with her mother, Sheila. According to Sheila, there was never a dull or quiet moment when Sierah was around. She was the catalyst for constant cheer and laughter in their household. Even as a teenager, Sierah's cheerful and outgoing spirit was evident. Her friends fondly recalled how she would dance around the school in a cheerleading uniform, despite not being on the team, just to get a laugh and brighten everyone's day. Her cheerful spirit was contagious, lifting everyone's moods effortlessly. But it wouldn't always stay this way. On July 19, 2016, it was a beautiful summer evening when Sierah decided to take her new purple bicycle out for a ride. After spending the afternoon together at her boyfriend's house, it was time for Sierah to head back home, and her boyfriend, Josh, accompanied her on his motorcycle. The young couple was deeply in love, their bond strengthened over their 7-year relationship that blossomed from a teenage romance. As they rode along the winding country roads, Josh captured 2 videos of them on Snapchat at 6:43 p.m., preserving those final, carefree moments together. With just a couple of miles left until Sierah's home, she insisted on riding back alone for the last stretch, assuring Josh that she could manage perfectly fine on her own. Josh reluctantly agreed after Sierah's persistent reassurances, and they shared a goodbye kiss. He stood watching as Sierah pedaled away into the distance among the cornfields, never imagining it would be the last time he'd see her beautiful, smiling face. Hours passed, and Sierah didn't respond to Josh's texts, nor did she return home as expected. Panic set in as her family realized they had crossed wires. Sheila, her mom, had assumed Sierah was still with Josh or had made it back safely. As night fell and Sierah didn't answer her calls, a wave of dread washed over everyone. With only her bright neon tank top, shorts, and distinctive purple bicycle to go by, an enormous search operation was launched, spanning miles of dark, vast cornfields. For an agonizing hour, Sierah's family and law enforcement drove around calling out her name, shining torches into the fields, hoping for any sign of the missing 20-year-old. Then, suddenly, a glimmer of reflected light caught their eyes. It was Sierah's abandoned bicycle lying on the ground. Nearby, they found some peculiar items, 2 pairs of sunglasses, a screwdriver, and a small fuse box. But the true gravity of the situation became clear when they noticed broken cornstalks with traces of blood. It was unmistakable. There had been a violent struggle, and all evidence pointed to Sierra being forced off the road into the fields in what looked increasingly like an abduction scene. The chilling realization that this had occurred a mere 500 feet from her home only amplified the horror. As the investigation rapidly unfolded, a name surfaced that would send chills down everyone's spine: James Worley, a 57-year-old who resided in the area. When questioned, Worley not only admitted to being in the exact location where Sierra had gone missing on that fateful night, but he also provided an absolutely wild story. He claimed that his motorcycle had broken down at that very spot where Sierra's bike was found. Worley stated that he had debated using her bicycle to get home, but ultimately decided against it, instead opting to push his motorcycle all the way back. To the investigators' astonishment, Worley proceeded to reveal that on his way home, he had dropped his helmet, screwdriver, and a fuse box. None of the items discovered had been made public knowledge until that point, yet Worley had eerily accurate details about each one. While his story strained credibility to the breaking point, investigators lacked sufficient evidence to obtain a search or arrest warrant at that stage, forcing them to release him. However, a background check on James Worley soon provided the crucial piece of information needed to turn the tide of the investigation. It was revealed that in 1990, Worley had been convicted of abducting a female cyclist named Robin Gardner under circumstances similar to Sierra's disappearance. The parallels between the two cases were too compelling to ignore, finally giving authorities probable cause to obtain a search warrant for Worley's property. What they discovered there would shake even the most seasoned investigators to their core.
This barn was located the furthest away from the house. It was almost secluded in a way that the people in the home probably couldn't hear much of what was going on in the barn.
Our initial view in were hay bales. And as we removed the hay bale, we were looking. Most astonishingly, we found this green crate.
So behind the bales of hay, you find this.
Yes, this is the green crate.
Bags and bags of women's underwear and clothing, some stained with blood, were found stored in a green crate covered by hay bales. The walls were splattered with blood and an array of disturbing items were uncovered: handcuffs, zip ties, duct tape, rope, and mask. Perhaps most chilling of all was a piece of plywood concealing a hole in the ground that led to a freezer lined with blood-stained carpeting and reeking of chemicals. This barn was no ordinary structure. It had been meticulously constructed as a house of horrors, a terrifying lair to abduct, torture, and potentially dispose of victims. Faced with the overwhelming evidence, Worley's feeble explanations crumbled. He first claimed the women's undergarments likely belonged to an ex-girlfriend before attempting to pass off the entire grisly scene as a setup for an X-rated film production company he planned to start. His words rang hollow, and with probable cause undeniable, James Worley was placed under arrest on suspicion of abducting Sierah Joughin. Just days after the search for Sierah Joughin had commenced, a heartbreaking discovery was made that brought the horrific reality into full focus. Drones surveilling the area had detected a suspicious mound of dirt in one of the cornfields nearby, appearing to be a freshly dug hole covered over. Investigators knew then that the mission to find Sierra had reached its tragic conclusion. She had been buried in a shallow grave in those very fields where her bright purple bicycle was discovered. Sierra's lifeless body was bound in an unimaginably cruel way, her wrists handcuffed, ankles tied with rope, and bound to her hands. Most horrifically, she was wearing a diaper and had died of asphyxiation after choking to death on a plastic gag that was still lodged in her mouth so forcefully that it had broken one of her teeth. The medical examiner's report revealed the extent of Sierra's suffering in her final moments. She had been tortured over the course of several agonizing minutes as the gag cut off her air supply. While no evidence of sexual assault was found, the examiner stated that the sheer brutality and indignity inflicted upon Sierra was so sickening that even the most seasoned investigators had to take a moment to compose themselves. When that dreadful call came through to Sierra's loved ones late that night, her mother Sheila described an overwhelming, deep, dark, quiet hole of despair that froze everyone in profound silence. No words needed to be spoken. The silence said it all. Their beautiful, vibrant Sierra was gone, stolen from them in an act of incomprehensible evil. As the shocking details of Sierra's murder came to light, the investigation into her killer, James Worley, only deepened the repulsive portrait of a dangerous predator. A background check exposed a pattern of disturbing behavior spanning decades that had somehow continually evaded justice. Worley's own sister, in a damning testimony, claimed that he was suspected in at least 3 other murders and missing persons cases from years past, though charges were never filed due to lack of evidence. One such case involved the 1980s disappearance of 14-year-old Lorianne Hill, which had long turned cold. Another was the unexplained vanishing of Claudia Tinsley, whom Worley admitted to being in a vehicle with on the very night she went missing. It became excruciatingly clear that James Worley was an individual who had likely been given second, third, and fourth chances to walk free, leaving a trail of potential victims in his wake over the years. Sierra's case finally appeared to be the one that would ensure this violent cycle could no longer repeat itself. The fact that this monster had been allowed to walk free after just 3 years in prison for such a vicious crime likely enabled his future transgressions, including Sierra's murder. When the long-awaited trial commenced, the prosecution entered an overwhelming amount of damning physical evidence tying Worley directly to Sierra's abduction and murder. Phone records placed him in the vicinity of where she was last seen at the exact time of her disappearance. Forensic tests showed his and Sierra's DNA on the blood-stained mattress, rope, duct tape, and motorcycle helmet discovered in his barn of horrors. Perhaps most chilling of all were records of Worley's recent internet searches for terms like hitchhiker, helpless, gag, and hogtie, grim indicators of his predatory, torturous fantasies that appeared to have become realities inflicted upon Sierra. After a grueling 6-hour deliberation, the jury reached their verdict. James Worley was found guilty on 17 of the 19 charges against him, including the most serious count of aggravated murder. Despite his outrageous protestations of innocence and claims of being framed, the jury unanimously recommended that he be sentenced to death for his heinous crimes against Sierra. In an astonishing 40-minute rant during sentencing, Worley continued to proclaim his innocence, even stating, "Don't ask me why she wasn't raped. She was a beautiful girl." Sierra's poor family was forced to endure these cruel taunts until, mercifully, the judge allowed them to exit the courtroom. The judge agreed wholeheartedly with the jury's recommendation, ordering James Worley to be put to death by lethal injection on June 3, 2019, for the aggravated murder of Sierah Joughin. With the property in her possession, Sheila made the decision to demolish and burn down every structure on Worley's land that had been tainted by unimaginable darkness. As the structures that had suppressed so much evil fell, she described it as removing the darkness and opening it up and letting the light shine in. Where once only shadowy secrets and unfathomable cruelty dwelled, Sheila envisioned transforming the now vacant land into something beautiful and positive that could celebrate Sierah's vibrant spirit. Rather than being forever associated with indescribable trauma, this land would serve as a symbolic space of remembrance, resilience, and hope blooming from unrelenting anguish. Even as the legal proceedings raged on in Sierah's case, her family and community found healing by honoring her vibrant spirit and zest for life through annual memorial events. At Evergreen High School, where Sierah's contagious energy once brightened every hallway, a permanent memorial plaque and tree were dedicated in her honor. More than just a passive monument, Sierah's legacy is celebrated through an annual scholarship awarded in her name to students who embody her compassionate character. Some of the most powerful tributes, however, took the form of yearly community gatherings that transformed sorrow into celebration. The Jogging for Joughin 5K race and Sierah Joughin Memorial Motorcycle Ride initiatives drew hundreds of passionate participants annually. These momentous events united Sierah's loved ones and strangers alike in a remarkable outpouring of support. Even as Sierah's case reached its legal conclusion, a deeply unsettling question still remained. Did James Worley have other victims who vanished without a trace over the years? Given the meticulously designed torture chamber on his property, complete with restraints and disturbing tools, authorities believed it was highly improbable that Worley may have inflicted cruelty, but he will never extinguish the radiant light that Sierah brought into this world. Sierah's memory shines brightly as a symbol of hope, showing us that even the worst cruelty can be overcome. She serves as an inspiration for each of us to truly cherish every soul who graces our world. If you found this video compelling, please consider showing your support by giving it a like and subscribing to our channel for more true crime content. Your engagement helps us continue to shed light on important stories like Sierah's and raise awareness about the impact of violence in our communities. Until next time, stay safe and take care.